Hey crafty people, welcome back to my channel, and in case you're new here, I'm Sarah, also known as Craft Nerd because I'm a nerd who loves to craft. I do paper crafting, card making, junk journaling, and mixed media art. Let's get crafting! So I've got a couple prototypes on my desk here because I wanted to make an album where I could use my 8x8 Graphic 45 paper packs without having to do a lot of cutting of the pages. So the albums are 8.5 by 8.5 on the outside, so that the pages on the inside are 8.25 by 8.25, so they sit inside. Now this was the first prototype I made, and we are going to use some hinge binding in here. And what ended up happening is I created this bit with some add-ons over here and realized that given the size of this, I needed to have chipboard cover and spine. So I added that after the fact, and it didn't go quite as nicely and neatly as I would have liked. So it sent me back to the drawing board a little bit, in that for this one I started by creating the chipboard cover, spine, and back, and then added my insert in. And see here, you can see the hinge binding system we're gonna do before I've added the pages on. And the only issue with this one is I need to put a bigger gap between the spine and the front and the back cover. So hopefully third time's the charm, and on this one we will get it exactly right. And if not, you'll never see this video. So to start with, I have got 2 pieces of chipboard that are 8.5 by 8.5, and 1 piece of chipboard that is 8.5 by 1 1/8. That's 1 1/8. I will list all of my measurements down below. And that's because I wanted to give myself a little extra room for where my hinge binding goes, because it measures exactly 1 inch, and it got a little tight and fiddly to get into place when I only had, because I do a mock-up with just scrap paper first, and so that one, it was a little fiddly with the spine area being just 1 inch. So this is our spine and front and back cover piece. And the chipboard I'm using is a medium chipboard that I believe I got from maymaymadeit.com. I will put a link down below if I can find one. And a couple of tips about chipboard. If you've got like little raggedy bits, you can rub 2 pieces of chipboard together to clean them up. These actually cut pretty good because I used my Tim Holtz mixed media rotary trimmer. If you don't have the Tim Holtz mixed media rotary trimmer, and that's a mouthful, you're just going to want to be careful if you're using a regular trimmer to cut through a couple times, flip it over, cut through a couple times, and then it should come off, and you're likely to have a little bit more of a raggedy edge when you do it that way. Or if you're using an X-Acto blade and a ruler, again, do a couple passes on one side, flip it over, do a couple passes on the other side, because it's really too thick to cut through on one go, unless you have something like the Tim Holtz mixed media rotary trimmer. And this is pretty much just at the limit of what it will cut. I noticed it was, with the rotary trimmer, it will stop if what you're trying to cut is too thick. And this one I had to coax it through, especially because you'll notice the chipboard doesn't want to bend very much this way, but bends more this way. So cutting this way with the bendy part cut much easier than cutting the non-bendy direction. So for the cover, the more rigid direction, we want to go this way. So we're gonna have, this is the top and this is the bottom, or vice versa, but we're just gonna mark those with a T and a B so that when we go to assemble, we remember that we want it to go this way, so that we've got a sturdier, more rigid way to the thing, instead of, so that when you're opening your album, you're not opening it the less rigid direction, if that makes any sense. And then we've got our spine. So we are gonna start by wrapping and attaching these guys together. And for the rest of the construction of this piece, I am using clear path paper, Kraft brown cardstock, 80-pound cover, and it's 8.5 by 11, and I picked it up at Amazon. So what I have done is I have cut out 6 strips that are 8.5 by 1.5 inches, and then a strip that is 9.5 by 3 1/8, and this is going to be what we put our spine piece on. So to help with wrapping with my little skinny strips here, I'm just going to pull out my scoreboard and I'm going to score them all at 1 inch. So we're going to take our first piece, we're going to fold over, and we're going to attach the shorter side on the inside. So I'm going to go ahead and glue that down. Just adjusting it so that it's easier for me to see. And so I'm going to go up to the score line with my chipboard, and then I'm going to take a scoring tool and I'm going to run it along the side here to kind of train the paper to go up, and then fold it over and score that. Now, if my spine's going here, we're not going to wrap on this side. We're going to go to this side. Again, fold, apply the skinny side. And on the last side. And I'm going to do the same thing for the other one, just making sure I keep in mind that I need to have one side that I don't put these pieces on. And I think I forgot to mention, I'm using art glitter glue for this. You, of course, could use whatever glue you prefer. If you wanted to use score tape, you absolutely could do that for this part. And I just realized I put one on the wrong side on this one. That's okay, this is gonna get covered up, so I'm not too worried about it. So I'm just gonna peel that off, and don't do what I did. You want your side not covered, and so I'm just gonna glue this back down. I'm gonna go ahead and do a big ol' honkin' X over here so I know not to put it on that one. All right, now that we've got all the sides wrapped, I am going to glue these sides down, but I want to trim some of the bulk out of these corners since they're a little bit longer. And I'm going to use my right angle corner trimming guide. And we're going to line this up on this corner and just mark off I'm going to do the same over here. And I'm going to trim off my corners. And it doesn't have to be perfect. Don't worry yourself too much about it. We're just trying to get rid of a little bit of the bulk. So now we are going to go ahead and glue these guys down. All right, so there we go. They're both covered. And the reason I used strips just to cover the edges is because I'm using 8.5 by 11 cardstock. So it's not big enough to like wrap this entirely. Now we're gonna move on to our spine piece. And I'm gonna just basically center it in the middle of this piece of paper and glue it down. And so it's about 1/2 inch longer on either side of this piece and 1 inch on either side wider. And I'm just gonna train my paper again, the crease over here, and flatten that back out. Over here, and flatten that back out. And up top and the bottom. And my dog is getting into something outside, so I'm gonna go get him and bring him in. Okay, so these side pieces are gonna be how we attach the spine and the front and the cover together. So what we're gonna do, so we're only gonna glue down and wrap around the top pieces. So I'm actually going to take scissors and cut 2 there, and then that piece, that, and across. Does not have to be terribly precise. We can trim up later on. We just want to be able to cover the top and bottom of the spine piece. And we're gonna go ahead and glue it down. Gotta put my pin in my glue so it stops getting gloopy. This side. See, this we're gonna need to trim a little because it's got a bit overhanging, so we're just gonna take our scissors and trim a little off. All right, now we are going to attach our front and our back with our spine piece. Now I'm gonna grab 2 of my offcut pieces of chipboard because one was not thick enough. I'm gonna place it down, butting up against my spine piece as a spacer. So that's gonna serve as a spacer. I'm gonna flip this over and put a line of glue, and you know what? I'm gonna use my Bearly Arts because that'll give me a little bit more wiggle time if I have any issues with attaching. So I'm gonna run a bead of glue down the edge of the chipboard, and then I'm gonna glue this piece, getting close to but not touching my spacers. Then I'm gonna flip this over, push it up against the spacers, and then make sure it's lined up top and bottom. Let's pull the spacers out for a sec. Make sure it's lined up all the way at the top and all the way at the bottom. Double check my spacing. I'm gonna look up here and make sure it's all lined up nicely. And it's a little short down there, but that's all right. And we're gonna do the same thing on this side. We're gonna put our spacers in place, flip our piece over. All right, we're gonna set our spacers down while I do this because I'm right-handed, and I probably should just flip the whole thing around because that'll be the easier way for me to assemble this. So let's do that. Put our spacers in place. Run glue here, here, and here. This guy over, butt it up against our spacers. Make sure it's lined up all nice and neat, top and bottom. Press it down. And I think we got a little close down here. I think we need to shift it over just a little bit. And there we go. So that's going to be the outside spine and our inside. So now what I'm going to do is take my bone folder and just kind of run it down. And now we're gonna fold up and over. And wow, that's a little off. It is. Yeah, we're gonna be close enough on that one. So there is our outer spine for this piece. So next what we need is 3 pieces of paper that are 8 1/4 by 11. And for the first 2 pieces, we're going to take our first 2 pieces, well, one at a time. So first piece, we are going to put it in at the on the 11-inch side, and we are going to score at 8 1/4, 8 1/2, 9 1/4, 10, 10 and a quarter. So again, we're taking an 8 1/4 by 11 piece of paper, and we are going to score at 8 1/4, 8 1/2, 9 1/4, 10, 10 1/4. So, what we're now going to do, and to help you see things, we've got 2 pieces here that are 3/4 of an inch wide that I've marked with an X. Can you see the X? Yes, you can see the X. Those are going to make one of our hinges. This is going to be part of another hinge. We're going to have a hinge here. This is going to make one hinge. And what we're going to end up doing is gluing these 2 pieces together so that this makes our 3rd hinge. So that's how we're going to create our 3 hinges. Between our X's, we are going to do a mountain fold, which means we're going to fold it down like so. So again, between the 2 X's, it's a mountain fold. So you fold, peek up. I've just grabbed a mat because my squishy silicone mat is not good for creasing stuff. So I'm going to come in with my bone folder and crease those. And crease that. Now we've got a 1/4 inch space between these 2 score lines. Those are both going to be valley folds, which means we're going to fold down. Right? So that one gets folded down. And I'm going to score with that. And so does the next one. It goes down. So I find it's easier to pull this piece up for folding that one. So what that's doing is it's creating a gusset between this piece and our first hinge. So again, this on the other side of the 1/4, it's actually already folding itself. So we folded up the mountain. This one's going to be a valley fold again. And this one's a valley fold. And so that when it gets glued in, this section will be a gusset between these hinges. That'll be a gusset between the hinge and this page. So again, on this one, we're valley folding this score line and this score line and this score line and this score line. So pretty much the only mountain fold is the one between the 2 X's, between the 2 pieces that are 3/4 of an inch. So I'm gonna fold it this way and score, and hopefully, am I on screen? Oh good, I am on screen. And then again, I find it easier to fold this big piece up to create that fold. And then again over here, fold up and fold up. So we're gonna just score those to make sure they're folded well. And so we get a second piece that looks like this. So now we're gonna glue. So we're gonna flip over and we're gonna glue our mountain closed. So I'm going to take the glue and run it between the two pieces that are 3/4 of an inch. I'm just going to pinch those together. Set it down on my table. So that's one hinge. We're going to do the same thing on this side. We're going to glue between the two 3/4 of an inch spaces. Flatten it down on the table. There we go. Now we're going to take our last two X's and glue them to each other, and that will create, we'll have 3 hinges then. So I'm just going to flatten this out, run glue along here. I'm trying to make sure this is as flat as possible together. And if the two middle pieces for our hinge don't line up perfectly, it's okay. It's not going to matter. They're going to get completely covered. So here's our first page of our book, or album, or folio, or whatever we want to call it. Here is the last page. And in the middle are our hinges that we are going to add paper to create pages. All right, so we're going to set this piece aside, and we are going to grab our scoreboard and our other 8 1/4 by 11 piece of paper, and we're going to put that in, and we are going to score at. Right, so you may notice some extra cardstock on here. I had a bit of a mishap when installing the next piece, which I have edited out because it's not going to help you very much to see it. So we're just going to do it correctly this time. Let's clean up a little bit more of this paper that I can get off. So the next piece is going to go on, and it's going to go like this, and this is the last 8 1/4 by 11 piece we have. So I've gone ahead and kind of lined it up where I want it to be, and I'm going to make little marks where the page end, the covers end, and the spine are, and we're going to help ourselves out by doing a little scoring. And so that's pretty much 8 1/2, and then 8 5/8, and then 9 3/4, and 9 7/8 is about where we're landing. So before we attach, actually, you know what? I'm just gonna flip this over. That'll work, so that we hide our pencil marks. So what I'm gonna do is line it up on this side how I want it, and then kind of crease it over and bend over on my score lines just to get a little bit movement there. And I'm going to apply glue to this center section. And then fold this flap over and press it down until it's on there good, and then let a dog in because he wants in desperately. And now that that's on, I am going to take this side and fold it all the way up to the spine and then back. And I'm going to take a silicone bone folder, if I can find what I did with it. My desk ate it. Found it. And I'm very gently gonna press in along here so that our hinge actually works, and we can close up our book. So So you just want to gently get that scoring going before we attach it to the front here, since we want our front cover to move freely. So now that we've done that, which was the step I forgot the first time around, we're gonna apply glue, and I'm gonna apply it to my chipboard piece because I don't want to get glue down in my hinge. We're gonna flip it over and fold up to make sure we've got it folding into our crease before we press it down. Try and keep it nice and straight. And there's that side's attached. And I'm not too worried about how perfect it is over here, because I'm gonna take probably one of the pieces I cut off in creating the various pieces for this and use it to create, probably that one, a pocket on the side over here, so it'll cover up any imperfections along here when we go to decorate. Now I'm gonna do the same thing over on this side. I'm gonna train my paper into the crease here. Make sure it will fold up the paper in the crease. And then again, we're gonna apply the glue onto here so that we don't put glue in our crease there. And we're gonna push it in. Before folding it down and making sure it's gonna go in to the crease. And there we go. That's in. All right, so now we're gonna grab back our piece with the hinges and glue that in. And what we're gonna do is glue that in onto our spine. Now I am gonna apply glue here and here and here and here and clean up the glue that I got up on that front part. Whew, getting glue everywhere. Let's clean that off and that off. And now we're gonna attach this to our spine. We're just gonna make sure we stay on the spine piece. So I'm looking down here to make sure that this crease doesn't go past the spine and that that crease doesn't go past the spine. And then I'm gonna push down the gussets on either side like this and just get them down. And there we go. That's the base for our album assembled. And it will almost open up completely flat. Not 100% perfect on that. But there you go. And it's all in. Now what we're gonna do is I have cut 6 pieces of paper that are well, I thought they were all 8 1/4 by 8 1/4, but this guy seems to be a little off. That's 8 1/8. That's all right. There's something we can do about that. We're just gonna go ahead and use it, because why not? So what we're gonna do is attach these to our hinges. So I'm gonna add glue to my first hinge. Now don't go past the scoring here, or it's gonna interfere with the movement of your pages when you apply the glue. So I'm just gonna do that. I'm gonna take one of my 8 1/4 by 8 1/4 pieces, line it up, and fold my hinge down onto it. And just make sure it's on good. And then I'm gonna take another 8 1/4 by 8 1/4 piece, and I'm gonna apply glue on my hinge again. Again, do not go past this score mark here, because we've got our gusset. So you don't wanna glue in the gusset, and you don't wanna glue past the score mark, because you want your pages to move. So we're just gonna apply the glue again along the hinge. And then to make side pockets, we're gonna go along, whoop. We're gonna try and keep the glue on the page and just go a thin line of glue along the top. It's kind of hard to see where it is because all of it's the same color, and along the bottom. And we're gonna add this piece, again, laying it down over here, lining it up, trying to get it all lined up correctly. And what we'll just do is trim off any, oh, that's not the one that's excess. That's the back, next page, never mind. So we're just gonna make sure it's attached like so. Now, if you're using score tape, I would not necessarily suggest using it for creating your pockets, because score tape's never going to fully dry. So you have the potential for things sticking to the tape if you use tape for closing up your pockets. So you're probably better off using a liquid glue that will dry than using a score tape for pockets. So we've now got a pocket over here. And so we're gonna do same process over again. We're gonna apply glue to our hinge. And this is why it doesn't matter that this middle hinge didn't line up exactly right, because we're gonna cover it with our pages. Stick this down, lining it up top and bottom, and fold our little hinge over and press it down till it's nice and glued on. Now I think for this one, we'll make it a top pocket, which means we're gonna apply glue, and we're gonna glue the entire hinge part, so it'll be a little bit smaller pocket, but I don't think that that's a big deal. I think we're all right doing it that way. So we're gonna do, again, be mindful of your score lines. You don't wanna glue on to the gusset area. So we're just gonna glue the whole hinge and then glue across the bottom and up the side. and attach our piece. Okay, so this is our little slightly shorter than one, so we will just trim off any excess when we are done. So there we go. Make sure we don't have any glue seepage that might glue things together. We don't want glued together. And so that's created a top pocket. And then we got one last one to go. And again, I'm gonna do this one as a side pocket. So we're gonna glue, being mindful of our score mark, I've got 2 pages that are a little out of whack, but that's okay. We can always trim off any excess. It's not going to be a big deal. And so there we go. We've got another pocket. And then this page straight on like that. So there is our base assembled. And I'm looking at this and I think I need to add a little bit more glue down in my spine to get this to lie flat against the spine. So I'm just going to go in and push that down, and I'll double check on the other side. That's pretty good. That's glued. And so there we go. So what we've got now is our first page, our second page, which has a large side pocket, our third page, which has got a large top pocket, page 4's got a large side, and then page 5, and then our back. We're going to stop here for today. In the next video, we will add some flips, flaps, pockets, and decorative papers to the album. I'll leave a link to the playlist for this album down below. And if you want to be sure you don't miss the next video in this series, be sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell. I'd also appreciate it if you gave me a thumbs up and left me a comment down below. Thanks for joining me, and happy crafting!